Welcome to the celebration of our lifetime members for 2021. My name is Ann Batiza, and I am the current Vice President for Organization of the League of Women Voters of Milwaukee County. Each of these members whose service we celebrate today has been a member of the League of Women Voters for at least 50 years. We thank each of them for a half century or more of service to the League and to our democracy. We are fortunate to honor 5 of our members here today: Sarajane Kennedy, Carol and Bob Diggelman, Ruth Snedic, and Joanne Kreimendahl. So, Sarajane, in 3 minutes, what issues were of the greatest interest to you in the League, and how did you engage with them?
Okay, well, in thinking about this, I've discovered that almost any issue is of interest to me. And what appealed to me with the League was that, one, it was not a single issue organization, and also that any issue it considered for study or action was something that was eligible to be acted upon at the local, state, or national government. And that appealed as well, because I had a real interest in good government and in promoting that. And so, one, trying to learn more myself. And so issues I remember being engaged with, things like low-level radioactive waste, campaign finance reform, marital property reform, redistricting, all appealed. They were issues at the time when I joined that were under a look, as well as economic development as a local issue. And so attending meetings, participating in studies, participating in consensus were always at the top of my list. And then lobbying, writing to your legislators or your mayor or your alderman, trying to promote whatever the issue was. So that's, and the opportunity to meet people with similar interests, the opportunity to learn about the community I was in, and the opportunity to influence good government.
Great. So what actually brought you to the League? How did you find out about it?
Well, my husband was in a carpool shortly after we moved to Stoughton, and one of the women in the carpool suggested to him that I might want to join the League of Women Voters. And at that point, it was a unit, Stoughton unit, within the Dane County League. And so it was, it was a great opportunity to get to know some people in the community. For the most part, they were people kind of between 25 and 40, I'd say, about 20 of us. And they were all interested in government. And another thing I was able to do immediately was join the Observer Corps, which meant that I went to city council meetings. And I just loved that. And ultimately, League gave me a lot of opportunities, not the least of which was the wherewithal to run for office and get elected to the city council. So that was the start. And from there, it just got better.
Wow, that's very impressive. Which city council was this?
Stoughton City Council.
Stoughton City Council.
Yeah, in Dane County.
Mm-hmm. Wonderful. So is there any memorable anecdote you'd like to relate about your work in the League?
Well, I have a few. Now, talking about having opportunities, and in many ways, opportunities I never thought I'd have. So visiting the county jail in Milwaukee County was one opportunity that I didn't expect to do. Working with the Chamber of Commerce on economic development, but I wound up participating. I was a part of Wisconsin's approach to a national study of low-level nuclear waste disposal. And that led me to visiting a low-level nuclear waste disposal site in the state of Washington, and which was memorable in itself. I mean, I had to have clearance, but I found myself on a bus filled with Japanese businessmen and industry folks who were visiting from Japan. And so they and I stood and looked at this massive pit and where things were being disposed of. And cameras were very kind of new and interesting then, in the sense of lots of fancy cameras and Japan was known for fancy cameras. And so the other thing was that I think every one of those men had a camera and they took pictures at the rim of the pit. I was kind of like, really? So that was one. And I think paper ballots in Stoughton in 1971, paper ballots and trying to read that, watching the poll workers as I was doing election night reporting, watching the poll workers trying to make sense and figure out what marks were meant and where they should be and so on, was kind of intriguing. And more recently in Wauwatosa, I moderated a forum for the Rotary at one of its luncheon meetings, and it was for the state senator that represented Wauwatosa. And at the end of the forum, a gentleman, a member of the Rotary, came up to me and said, "I'd like to vote for you." So I felt very good about that.
Oh, that's awesome.
Candidates were not overly impressive. Anyway, those are my tales, highlights.
Great. So where do you think the League has been most effective in affecting the lives of citizens in the U.S. And in Milwaukee?
Well, I guess I certainly think there certainly were program issues in terms of economic development and campaign finance and things like that. But they've taken a bit of a backseat in the last probably 10 years to voting rights. And I agree that, that's pretty much the most important thing to focus on. And so national and state have not been pushing studies. They've been pushing involvement in making democracy work and for all of us. And so, I feel like we've been paying attention to that forever. And we're a group that does get results. I mean, I think just reading what's happened in the last couple of years in various states, seeing what different leagues have been responsible for. And in some cases, they've had more success than we've had in Wisconsin with putting a lid on laws that kind of limit access. But at the same time, we're all working at that same goal. And I think also that's what it's attracted so many people to League recently. And that's good for us too, in terms of growth and involvement and visibility. So I think probably election at the top, and election and voting rights. And then afterwards, it's been got environment and human services and healthcare. We've been part of so many big issues, and with some success. You just have to keep working at it.
Terrific. Well, are there any issues you feel the League should direct its attention to at this point, either in initial studies or in more focused actions?
Well, when I joined the League in 1979, redistricting was a hot topic. I'm sorry, not in 71. When I came to Wauwatosa in 79, redistricting. And that's been the case for probably 6 decades. Every time there'd be an issue of, and usually it'd wind up in the courts in Wisconsin to be settled because neither party in the legislature had the power. Neither political party had the power, and so they had to come to compromise, and they couldn't come to compromise, so it'd go to the courts. And this last time, with the whole redistricting and one party being in control, regardless of who the party is, there are places in the country that it works with the other party. But, they took advantage of that. And I guess I feel like, for me, the gerrymandering, the redistricting has been a major suppression of voters. Because if your vote doesn't count, if you vote, but it doesn't really matter what you vote, and the person representing you doesn't really care what you have to say or doesn't respond when you write your opinion, or then government, I think, falls apart. I mean, we wind up with gridlock. We wind up with the money that contributed to getting the candidate elected governing what issues get dealt with and what don't. So I just feel like we have to keep on the redistricting and the voting rights, top of the list.
Thank you, Sarajane, for your informed service to the League. Next, we will hear from Carol and Bob Diggelman, both of whom are lifetime members. What issue has been of greatest interest to each of you, and how did you engage with it?
Been a member of the League since the early 70s and was drawn to the League because of my interest in natural resources. And my involvement has been primarily on natural resources committees, both at the Milwaukee County level and at the state level. Bob?
Bob?
Okay. I think I'm really sort of a tag-along husband when it comes to League of Women Voters. There's a number of organizations that I believe in and we try to support financially. And so that's probably the main reason I've been a member of League. But the part of League that really has always impressed me over the long haul has been the encouragement of people to vote and to get more and more people to vote and to make it easier for people to vote. And tied in with that would be having nonpartisan redistricting.
A long time issue as well. Well, thank you very much. So what brought you to the League? Carol, I'll start with you again. What brought you to the League?
Interestingly, in the early 70s, our son John was born. At the same time, I was nominated to be on the Snowmobile Recreational Council. So I would go to these meetings and found a friend, made a friend, Kay Smith from Wausau, and she had long been active in the League. So I decided, since I was a stay-at-home mom, I would look into the League of Women Voters.
Terrific. And how about you, Bob? What brought you to the League? I think I know the answer.
You know, the answer should be Carol brought me to the League because she was involved in it. And I thought, well, I will tag along and support her in that. And so I did.
Oh, terrific. So would either of you like to relate a memorable anecdote about your time in the League, something that stands out for you?
I think the thing that comes to mind is that being on the Snowmobile Recreational Council as an environmentalist was not fun. There wasn't a thing I could get past. But also, I could prevent a lot of things from being brought forward, as I was told at the end of my 6-year period there. So I think it's an important thing for us to be at the table when important policy decisions are being discussed. And Bob?
One of the things that I remember from many years ago is one of League's fundraising activities was to do the phone-in reporting for national elections. League members from all over the country would volunteer to watch the vote at key precincts and then rush to payphones and put coins in and call in the results so that the television stations could report things. And Carol signed up to do that, but then she was teaching night classes, so she couldn't ever go, or I won't say ever, but some of the time she couldn't go to these things. So I would go and usually bring a friend along. And we would do our reporting from a senior citizen center where they were, to say the least, technologically challenged to get the machines open and to get closed at the end. And then what always just irritated and fascinated me was, instead of reading off the main votes that we were interested in, they'd always read off all the write-in votes. And that would take forever. But we'd sit there and we'd suggest gently that maybe they could go to the people who were really getting most of the votes, and they would finally. And then I'd rush to a phone and we'd make the phone calls. And that's sort of one recollection I have of an interesting part of League.
Great, thank you. Where do you think the League has been most effective in affecting the lives of citizens, either in any of the areas where you were a member of the League, or in Milwaukee, or throughout the country?
I think their activities in helping people to vote, getting out the vote, and in influencing public policy. because we study issues and advocate based on what we've learned.
I would say getting people to register to vote. Just the long term, getting more and more people to register to vote is the most important thing.
Wonderful. So can I predict what issue you think people or the league should turn its attention to now? Or Carol, you want to suggest what issue you think the league should focus its attention on most now?
Well, I think that these voting issues don't go away. These voter suppression issues keep squeezing out in different directions, so we can't ever let that drop. But I do feel that we're facing some resource issues, natural resource issues that are very important. Climate change, water pollution, biological diversity. I mean, the whole list of things that are equally important.
If I just have to pick one issue that the league should work on, give its resources to, I think it would be to help reduce gerrymandering and to work for nonpartisan commissions to redefine congressional districts and all the state assembly and senatorial districts in Wisconsin and all over the country. I think that's the one thing that stands out above everything else.
Thank you, Carol and Bob, for your passion and dedication over the past 50 years. Next, we honor lifetime member Ruth Snedic. Ruth said the issue of greatest interest to her was voter registration. She said, "I helped in many voter forums and helped register voters, including at the citizenship programs where we were able to catch the new citizens and they were happy to get registered. I think that was my greatest interest." In terms of how she came to the league, Ruth said, "I used to attend the candidate forums the league put on. After expressing my interest in the league, members encouraged me to attend their local meetings to discuss the issues, so I decided to join." Regarding a particular anecdote, Ruth responded, "I don't remember anything in particular, but always enjoyed the citizenship programs." And in response to the question about where the league has been most effective, Ruth said, "The league has been most effective in showing citizens how to get involved in issues in the community, and by testifying at government meetings to influence their decisions where we thought we could be useful in helping them make the right decisions. Thank you, Ruth, for your 50 years of service doing exactly that." So I'm here today with Joanne Kreimendahl, a 50-year lifetime member of the League of Women Voters. Thank you, Joanne, for your service to the League for a half century. And today I'll be asking several questions. And the first one is, what did you find in the League to be of interest, and what did you engage in while you were in the League? And under 3 minutes, if possible. Thank you.
Oh, I'm more succinct than that. Well, the issues, primarily voter service, natural resources, were of great interest to me, but also just the camaraderie of getting together with other league members to talk about issues or to talk about life in general. It just all I felt was very rewarding.
Wonderful. So what actually brought you to the League?
Well, I had just moved to Menominee Falls, and I found out that my neighbor was involved in a group trying to start League in Menominee Falls. And so I joined in the effort, and At that time, you had to have 50 members in order to become a provisional league, which we did. But we found that a lot of the members were only interested in getting the league started, but not continuing. So we lasted only about 2 years, I think. And in talking with Beverly this morning, she mentioned Kit's name. And she was our advisor at that time, which obviously was in the very early 70s.
Wonderful.
And so I have known her my entire league life.
Particular anecdote you'd like to relate about your...
Yes, I was just visiting with friends in Maryland who used to live in Menomonee Falls. And she has been a member of League, I think kind of off and on because of going back to school and then working for the government, et cetera. There were times that she couldn't be a member, I guess. Anyway, she reminded me that I was the one that got her into League. But moreover, League was actually the reason we became friends. Just from, rather limited. Well, to back up a little bit, after Menomonee Falls League became out of existence, I joined Elmbrook League. And at one time we thought about trying to start a unit in Menomonee Falls. And that's where I met this friend. And it was because of leagues that we had been friends for not quite 50 years, but a good part of that. And she has, we talked a bit about it this past week, and she has found time that she can get back into it in the DC area. And so, I just find that connection very interesting.
Wonderful. I see. Where do you think that the league has been most effective in either nationally or in Wisconsin or Milwaukee?
Specifically, that's a little hard for me to get into because it hasn't been in my thoughts lately. But overall, I think, again, it leads back to voter service and clean elections. And certainly at this stage of our political life, we know how important that is. Redistricting, clean elections, we have to, if we don't have that, then we don't have anything.
Very good. So at this point, where do you think the league should focus its attention, either in studies or action or advocacy?
Well, in addition to problems with voter service redistricting and all, we are in kind of a national situation that is really disconcerting with the amount of action against people like the Asians. Certainly the Black situation has been in the forefront of the news for well over a year and doesn't seem to be getting better. And I'm not exactly sure what or how League would be involved in that. Although it seems like we have done something on a local level to try to get our members to understand how to work with people who have significantly different views, and to do it without fighting over it, to be able to come to some conclusion. So I'm not sure just how, I haven't given thought to how how that would work on the national scene with the amount of harassment and violence against certain groups of people. But you know, certainly it's a problem for all of us. So it's just a matter of figuring out what we can do about it.
Okay, well, thank you so much for this conversation and for your half century of service to the League. It's
Well,
amazing.
you're very welcome, and it was great talking to you, Ann.
Oh, thank you.